What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today is the day we're finally going to actually do some work to the Genesis Coupe. This is something that I've been talking about forever, probably a year, maybe even a year and a half, but we're finally going to start doing some fiberglass repairs on the front fender flare right there and the rear fender flare right here. Now, I do want to keep this intro to this video pretty quick and get right into work, but I do want to give a little bit of a rundown, a little bit of a background on myself, because at this point, I do have a little bit of experience working with fiberglass and doing fiberglass repairs. Back in summer of 2020, when I was redoing the Genesis Coupe in preparation for this current setup you see here, I had to do a bunch of repairs on all four fender flares. Each one of them had cracks in them. They were uneven. Some of them even had chunks missing from them. So I had to pretty extensively do all that. Now that honestly would have been the perfect time to start a YouTube channel and go through all of that extra work. But obviously that didn't happen, and here we are. Luckily, I do have to fix a couple of spots, so that's why we're making this video. Now, another thing that I did do, probably my kind of greatest achievement with fiberglass, is these front bumper extensions I built 100% from scratch to line up the remake fender flares with this M&S front bumper. These are not off-the-shelf parts. These are 100% hand-built by me. They came out pretty freaking great, if I do say so myself. There's the other side. So yeah, I have quite a bit of fiberglass experience. Totally confident in doing this. This is absolutely a probably 1 to 2, maybe 3 day job, depending on how long it takes to dry and do all that stuff. But I feel like fiberglass really intimidates a lot of people, even though when you break it down, it is probably one of the simplest, easiest things you might ever actually do to a car, especially given body work. Just take a minute or two. I want to go over everything you're going to need for any sort of fiberglass repair project, and I have it all laid out on the workbench in front of me. Now, first we're going to start over here. We got all the PPE. We got a face mask. This is especially useful if you're going to be doing a ton of sanding. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to be doing a ton of sanding today, so I probably don't need to go crazy with the face mask, hence why I just have a regular old surgical mask. Now, we all lived through 2020 and 2021. We all have face masks at this point. If you're going to do doing sanding, kicking up fiberglass dust, definitely wear it. Same thing with safety glasses. If you're going to be doing a ton of sanding and a bunch of fiberglass work, definitely wear safety glasses. I'm honestly probably not going to wear those today because, like I said, I'm not doing a ton of sanding. Next up, gloves. Definitely a must. You do not want to get the fiberglass or the resin all over your hands. Stuff takes forever to get off, and then if you're somebody like me who has a bunch of cuts all over their fingertips for whatever reason, you definitely want to keep gloves on, keep them protected. Moving along, chip brushes. I like to use 1-inch chip brushes. I have one out right here. I just use the small ones because I feel like they are just easier to use, better to use, and if I ever do some big giant fiberglass project, maybe I'll get a bigger brush, but for right now, 1-inch chip brushes, my go-to. Next up, you need some sort of mixing cup. Obviously, I just use these small 2-ounce plastic ones because, as you can see, I have a bunch of them right there, so if I have them, why not use them? If you want to use like the silicone mixing cups, you can get online. Go ahead, but I have these for right now, so I'm going to keep using these. Next up, obviously, you need the fiberglass. This is fiberglass matte. This is fiberglass cloth. I'm not going to go too much into the differences between the two. I prefer fiberglass matte, especially when you're doing something like we are today, where we're going to be doing a repair on the backside and we just want to build up layers and strength quickly and easily. Fiberglass matte, definitely the way to go. Then you're going to need scissors. Pretty obvious to cut the fiberglass, whether you choose the resin or the matte or the cloth, I should say. I like to use just cheap scissors because these things will get beat up. Cutting through this stuff, don't use expensive scissors. You don't want to ruin your good scissors. Now, last up, pretty obvious, you're going to need the resin as well as the hardener right there. Now, I use Bondo brand just because it's readily available pretty much everywhere. Bondo is in fact a brand, not a product. They make more than just body filler. However, like I said, I use this because it's readily available pretty much everywhere. Now, last up, you need sandpaper because you need to be able to prep the surface prior to doing all of the repairs with the resin and the fiberglass. You do not need something overkill like this sander polisher that I have here, but I just picked that up and I'm going to give it a shot. But any sort of sandpaper, just with your hands, scuff it up, prep the surface, and that'll be good enough. Now that we got all that out of the way, let's jump into the work. First step is going to be pretty obvious. We want to take the fender flares off the car. However, I'm going to save you the boredom of watching me unbolt all of the hardware and get these things off. So let's catch up when they're on the workbench. All right, so now that all that sanding is out of the way, first off, this thing, yeah, although it's great, that was way more powerful than I needed for this project. I would have 100% been better off just sanding this up by hand, because that stuff, even though I was on the low setting with like 180 grit or maybe 150 grit, it went right through all of this stuff. So I didn't intend for it to sand out this much, but whatever, the more the better. It's no different really. But this is the front flare, and since this is on the arch, I just have it clamped in place so the arch tries to stay as best lined up as possible, and then some blue painter's tape on the back side, just so that when we lay the fiberglass here, it's going to stay as flat as we hope for. And then we can build up some layers on the back side, and then flip this over, pull the tape off, and start building up layers from the front side, maybe tomorrow or later on today. Now, same thing goes for the rear flares. As you can see, sand it through, kind of widen out this opening, blue painter's tape on the back side. We're going to start laying some layers on the front side, build that up. Then once that's done, flip it over, start building up layers from the backside. That way when we bodywork it, we don't have to run the risk of going through just like we did there. Same thing with this. This is just another crack that I found. This is just a surface crack. The layers in here to about here on these flares are a lot thicker because this is where it contacts the rear wheel when you sit fender to lip. Aired out obviously, so I do have these built up a little bit thicker than the rest of the arch right here. So this is just a crack on the outside, but that's what happens when you have so many layers. So I just simply sanded that down. We'll throw some layers on top of that. Then when we body work this thing is sanded flat, it'll be good to go. Now with all that out of the way, I'm just gonna wipe this up real quick off camera, and then we'll get started on laying down some fiberglass. Alrighty, well that was one of the most stressful things in the world to film. Anything that has to do with getting your hands super messy, trying to film with the camera and stuff. Then I was doing this one backwards. I couldn't really see because I want to get a good camera angle. But anyway, so far, happy with how this has came out. Same thing with the front fender flare right here. So clamps held it in place just like I wanted. Did a couple of layers. I think I might have done an extra layer on that one and that one off camera just because I had some more life going with the resin. I was like, let me just do one more quick layer. And like I said, this is just to build up some layers and strength, so that way when we get to the backside, we can add some more. Then that way, when we're body working, sanding this and making this flush again, we don't have to worry about burning through anywhere on this repair. Now, if you are wondering, why didn't I take the vinyl wrap off the whole entire fender flare? To be honest with you, one, it just boiled down to laziness. I didn't feel like spending a whole bunch of time today peeling this whole fender flare and then just to work on a couple of few areas. Another reason is, which is actually kind of my real main logic, was that I was hoping that the vinyl wrap protect the rest of the flare and the finish on it, because these flares are in pretty good shape still. So if I kept getting runs and like extra strands of fiberglass everywhere, it would just create more sanding for me to have to do later on. So I don't know. Hopefully that logic doesn't bite me in the butt and this vinyl wrap is going to be impossible to get off in these areas. But hey, it was worth a shot. I figured now's the time to try it out when we're doing this stuff. But like I said, I'm going to let this dry overnight. We'll catch up with you in the morning. Then we'll do the backside and keep going. And then maybe at that point I might try out the heat gun method to get this stuff to harden up. I could have probably put extra hardener in the resin itself. I did put a couple of extra drops of this stuff in the resin, but I probably could have done like extra hardener in there so that way it cured up faster because it's so cold in here. But I just didn't want to run out of working time with this stuff. But yeah, that's enough rambling on for that segment. Catch up with you guys in the morning. Just like that, it is the next day. Everything is dried up, cured, hardened. Nothing is tacky at all. Everything looks just like I had wanted it to look. Obviously, this is bumpy and raised, so we need to sand this and smooth it out to get this flush again. But that was expected considering we also used the mat, not the cloth. But like I said, I already went over that stuff before. Now the next step is we're gonna do the front side on this one and the back side on this one. So without any further talking here, let's just dive right into the rest of this repair. Alrighty guys, so as you can see, all 4 spots we did today have been finished sanded on the outside. Now, as you guys saw, I tried out the heat gun method on curing this stuff quickly, and that worked absolutely perfectly, and I was able to sand this in just a matter of, I don't know, 40 minutes maybe, and all 4 of these spots came out super nice. Now this flare, these 2 spots, I did use that nifty little power sander thing, and these sanded pretty much almost flush in a matter of minutes, and I took a few more minutes to hand sand it just to smooth it out. I didn't want to ruin this body line right here with a power sander, so I did mostly this one in this top area by hand, and it came out really good, really smooth. Now obviously you might see, let me see, a couple of little pinholes like that one. That's probably not gonna focus, but you got a couple of little pinholes. That happens anytime you're doing fiberglass and resin work. That's why they make stuff like glazing putty to do those little tiny imperfections. So these will still need to be body worked 100%, but we're gonna do a whole bunch more work on these flares as well as the ones that are still on the car. So we're not gonna be finished body working any of that today or in this video. But yeah, these things came out absolutely fantastic. Heat gun method worked to cure this stuff, and then as you can see from this spot, even hand sanding this stuff with 80 grit works absolutely perfectly. But here we are. I think we're going to wrap up this video here. The repairs are essentially done. Now we just need to finally stop being lazy, peel the vinyl wrap off, and then get working on the rest of the stuff that I have planned for these fender flares. Also, I should point out a little bit that maybe now it kind of makes a little bit more sense on my logic behind leaving the rest of this vinyl wrap on the fender flares, because obviously now all of this area is still protected and isn't scuffed up with 80 grit down to the raw fiberglass. It still has primer and any sort of filler primer, bodywork, anything like that on this stuff. So all of this area is protected. Only the areas that we needed to touch have been touched. Now, is it going to make the edges a little bit harder to peel off with the vinyl wrap? Yeah, but not really that much, because if you can see, I can just sit here on with my finger and just kind of take all the residue and stuff up. So leaving the vinyl wrap on this spot, and this spot, or the surrounding area is definitely the move. Happy I did that. Happy it worked out as well. So on that note, guys, we're gonna wrap up today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed me messing around with these flares. This has been something I've been putting off, repairing this front fender flare for 2 entire years now. And this literally took me to do both these fender flares, 4 different spots, probably a total of maybe 3.5, 4 hours. So I don't know why I waited so long or procrastinated so much. This was so easy, so simple. I should have done this a long time ago, and it would have been less worse than it was already. But anyway, like I said, I don't want to drag this video on any longer. Peace out. I'll catch you guys on the next one.